Welcome to another session of Stelmo's Rants and Raves. I'm Stelmo. I just jump right in here. Well, the ceasefire now is ended. Not that we've gone back to a full scale war. And a lot of, in my humble opinion, needless talk. You got the president out there saying he's left instructions in case they assassinate him. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. If you get assassinated and killed, J.D. Vance becomes the president. He decides what happens, not your notes or letters or anything. Now, he may do it as a courtesy to you, but it's not like that has any force of effect. And I just think that this is yet another example of the president thinking he's going to scare these Iranians into a peace deal. Well, it's not going to happen, Mr. President. And if you don't get this war ended, it's going to be the Trump depression that everyone's going to blame you for. You have to end the war. And I don't mean end the war by surrender. I mean you have to do whatever's necessary to take out the IRGC. I mean, after all, is what you promised the Iranian people. But apparently, your word is not as important here this third term as it was in the first term. You know, one of the remarkable things that people talked about after your first term is that you really, when you said something, you meant it. But you've destroyed all of that goodwill here this term because nobody knows, and you find it easier and easier. Okay, I don't have a problem with necessarily you lying to the Iranian people, but I do have a problem when you have to lie to the American people. Because right now, I fear that we've lost this country. Yes, for many reasons. And this Iran war is just one example. I don't understand the delay. You have to get the Strait of Hormuz open one way or another in the shortest time possible. Because the problems that are coming down the pike are going to be so catastrophic that I fear that those socialist wackos are going to take over this country. In fact, I'm scared that the Democrats are going to win the midterms. Because, Mr. President, it's not bad enough that you said that you were not a war president and that you didn't believe in these wars. And then you got us in Iran and you said 2 weeks. Maybe it wouldn't have been too bad if it was 2 months, but the thing continues. And you're playing a game that's not going to bode well. It is not going to bode well. So you're going to have to go out there and finish this, hopefully sooner rather than later. And I'm going to keep repeating, what is the big problem here? Because there is a big problem, Mr. President. And that is you're negotiating with the civilian government who does not have the power in Iran. And even if they had the power, they don't have the weapons. The IRGC has the weapons. And, they want people to pay the tolls for the ships to go through or they're going to be blowing them up. And, you send some bombers, do a couple love taps, and then it's back to this, who knows what. But it's not ending. And it does not bode well for us. It's going to cause inflation to continue going through the roof. And then you're going to be having a fit with your new head of the Fed over there because he's going to have to raise interest rates. Things do not bode well for us. And then we got clowns. I am so mad. Normally I'm mad at the Republican Party because they can screw anything up. But Now I'm also mad at most, if not all, of these Republican pundits that are out there. Let me use one example. Jesse Waters, he's saying that the problem with Gen Z is they're too lazy. Jesse Waters, if you think that the way for the Republicans to win the midterms is to insult voters, go for it. But the problem is, many of the people in that generation understand the terrible economy we have left them with. We have left them straddled with trillions of dollars worth of debt that they're going to have to figure out how to pay off. And most likely they're going to be enslaved to pay it off. Because I remember China said that they expect to get back dollars of the same value that they invested in America as when they take it out. And we all know you've inflated away the purchasing power of the dollar, and the Chinese are not happy with that. And we know because we read their military pamphlets and books and everything, and we know that they're planning to take us out. It's not like they hide that. But on our side, it's like, oh, that's just idle talk. That's for the party apparatchiks to keep them happy and everything. I say it's a little bit more than talk. I think it's a problem. And Jesse Waters, you got to stop blaming Generation Z or Generation Alpha. It's not their fault that the economy is screwed up. You know, and this really, really keeps it gnawing at me and aggravating me to no end. I believe firmly that this depression we're going in would accurately be called the Biden depression. But the problem, Mr. President, is you jumped out there when the BLS numbers come out and you're taking credit for the economy. You later found out that those numbers were a bunch of malarkey, so you fired the person. So now the employment numbers look good, as if anybody is really fooling anybody. The economy is not doing well at all. And the sooner that people realize this and wake up and maybe try to do something, although at this point, I don't even know what they can do, because the problem is we have spent far too much money we don't have. We're borrowing. You know, for decades now, I've heard members of both parties talking how the spending is unsustainable. But yet does that slow them down any? No, they keep borrowing and spending. And now we got this Iran war. That's going to add probably another $100 billion to our debt. You know, I don't know. People got to wake up, because we're going to lose this country. You know, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, but it's really simple. When you're on the floor, you can't fall out of bed. And more people are, economically, they're on the floor. And every month, more and more are arriving on the floor. They're falling out of bed. And it's not because they're lazy. You got people working full-time jobs with 1 to 3 part-time DoorDash or whatever nonsense out there that they can do to try to make ends meet, and they're finding it increasingly difficult. It's because the value of the dollar keeps decreasing, because you keep spending more and spending more, and nobody's interested in solving this problem. I guess I don't get it. I mean, I'm totally bewildered. It makes no sense to me. We got serious economic problems. Well, for that matter, the whole world has problems right now with the economy. How is it fully going to play out? I don't know. China's hurting. All of Europe is hurting. And the UK is virtually bankrupt. And that's what happened when you put loony leftists in power. You know, there in the UK, they said, well, we don't like the conservatives too much, so we're going to go with these leftists here that say they're labor. You know, one party could not tear a country apart as much as that party has done in such a short period of time. It's a shame. Yes, Starmer's gone now, but whoever's going to fill the void is going to be just as bad. All of Europe is bad. And why is that? Well, let's tell it like it is. Because the politicians there accepted the money from the globalist retards, if I can say that, and they want one economy. They want basically the 1% to have everything and the other 99%, at least the 99% that they allow to remain on this planet, to service the 1%. Anybody extra? Well, you know what the loony leftists do with their opposition and extra people. They send them to the mortician for mortuary services. There's going to be a long line there. And you know, all these Republican do-nothing politicians, they promised everything. And they've now had over a year. And what have they gotten done? Very, very little. You know, Trump has had a lot of problems with these nationwide injunctions. And I've been retired for quite a while now. But, you know, when that first started, I did some research. And what do I find out? And this didn't surprise me. The first ones to use this nationwide injunction were the Republicans. And once they showed the Democrats how it was done, boy, did they run with it. But you know, our Congress could change that. They really could. And I know they say, well, we don't have 60 votes in the Senate. Well, have the votes. Put the senators on record. And in the meantime, you got Rhino John Thune out there. I hope that they're looking in South Dakota for a viable alternative to this guy. He's got to get cornered. Okay? It's sad that all these rhinos are going to be responsible for us losing the country. And I know all of these people are saying, well, we're taking some of that money too, so we're part of that team, and they're going to let us slide. Yeah. Just keep believing that. You'll be in line for the mortician just as quick as everyone else. Because socialists, they have a large history all around the world. Everyone knows what happens. But here in this country, everyone's saying, oh, no, it'll never happen here. The voters will wake up. Well, see, the problem is the voters want change because what's working isn't working. Our economy is in shambles. That's what happens when you borrow $40 trillion. And we're facing so much headwinds. You know, you got this private credit blowing up. Nobody knows how that's going to fully play out. Our whole economic system may collapse. And then you got, and you know, I find myself more and more at odds with President Trump because he's doing things that are just not right. You know, him and his family are playing a stock market. You know, they're, now, I don't know. I don't have any proof that they shorted anything here Friday. But that's a belief that they did because that's the way it has been going on. You know, because they know that the markets are going to tank because of the renewed attacks in Iran. And this keeps happening. They keep lining their pockets. And I don't know when it's going to stop. I don't know. All I do know is this country is facing so many problems. And right now, nobody is stepping up to try to find a way out of these problems. There are so many things that have to be done. And on top of it all, you have to wonder, what is wrong with the Republican Department of Justice? Trump had this problem in his first term. First with Jeff Sessions. I'm never going to understand that. He was a real law and order guy. Yeah, I know. There were stories he liked the young girls, and I don't know, the Obama teams, they weaponized just about everything in the government, so they probably found something on him and used it. The only thing makes sense. And then, of course, they put in Bill Barr. And, you know, what I didn't know about Bill Barr at the time was it was his father who hired Jeffrey Epstein to be a teacher, when Jeffrey Epstein didn't have any qualifications to be a teacher. So you have to wonder, and what happened to all those poor schoolgirls in that school? Well, I'm sure you all have active imaginations and can figure that one out. And so what we're finding out is perhaps we lost our country a long time ago and we just didn't realize it. Because, you know, Donald Trump was certainly the victim of a multi-tier justice system. So one might think that he might be a little bit more inclined to end that practice. But as he's clearly illustrated to us with the Epstein files, which haven't been released nowhere near completion, and nobody gets arrested, really. Nobody. But we know that there were a lot of important, prominent people there. How do we know that? Because we hear about the agreement that the DOJ made with Epstein years ago. And Trump made sure he got rid of Representative Massey because Representative Massey wanted the whole Epstein files released. It's a shame that the voters fell for that. They're not going to like the outcome. I know I'm not going to like the outcome. I got that. Fortunately, I'm old. I've lived most of my life. I really feel sorry for these young people. What have we left them but a debacle? You know, young people, they can't afford a house. Anymore, you can't even afford a car. You know, what was I reading, I don't know, last night or the night before, that they're saying now that the average payment that people are paying for a new car is over $700 a month. Costs a couple thousand just for a one-bedroom apartment. So you can see the amount of money you have to make. And that's not even including food or any of the other little things that life necessitates. But you got the Republicans out there. Well, they're lazy. They just don't want to work. Well, what are they supposed to do? Work 3 full-time jobs or something? You know, Trump fired the head of the BLS because of the jobs numbers. But you know, the BLS also does the inflation numbers. And anybody who does any shopping will tell you that the government's rendition of inflation over the last decade is woefully inadequate. I don't know how many items I purchase on a regular basis now cost me more than double what they used to. And we got gaslighted. Like when Trump put the tariffs on, they said, oh, no, you're not going to pay the tariffs. Well, in my Walmart, prices went up 30, 35%. And, of course, some even went higher than that. And for every 50 or 60 that went up, maybe one went down. So it's no matter how you cut it, it's a losing proposition. And, you know, I'm going to keep harping because it's all this war, Mr. President. You know, I watched 2C TV, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm going to keep repeating myself. I watched 2C TV long before the mainstream media picked up what was happening in Iran. I saw the people out there protesting. And then Donald Trump implored upon the people to take to the streets and take back their government. He said, if they start killing you or shooting you, we're going to be there. Well, they came out. After Trump said that the crowds more than doubled in size. You had clearly well over 1 million people in Tehran out in the streets. And they started killing. They're still killing. And apparently, the president's promises to the people of Iran they were false promises. You know, I don't know, it was a couple of weeks ago, I guess now, when they put the internet back on in Iran. And again, on 2CTV, I saw a lot of these people. And what they were doing is they would be talking, and they would be holding up pieces of paper saying, please send us weapons. We want to fight this repressive regime and get rid of them. Where are the weapons? Nobody knows. We're not sending them for whatever reason. And you have to wonder, all those people that died, Mr. President, whose blood? I mean, the blood is on your hands, right? I mean, who else can you blame? You're the one who told a lot of these people to go out in the streets. We'll be there. Many of them are dead now. And you keep, I can't figure it out. You keep saying, yeah, they want a deal so bad it isn't even funny. Yeah, the civilian government does. But guess what? They're just not in charge. You know, you pulled this same stunt over in Lebanon. You know, the problem over there is Hezbollah. So you decide, well, let's discuss peace, and we just will exclude Hezbollah from the peace agreement. And right from the beginning, Hezbollah come out and said, hey, we're not party of this. And they continued firing on Israel, and then you get mad at Israel when they just go to protect their people. It's shameful, Mr. President. I don't get it. You are a changed person this third term. I can tell you that. You are nothing like the Donald Trump in his first term. Nothing at all. Nothing. It doesn't even resemble. Nowhere close. And all those people are dead. The problem's still going on. And all Americans are going to suffer. Which makes me sometimes say to myself, is he trying to collapse the financial system so that we can have a new start? And I said, well, that's never going to play out well. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows fully how it'll play out because there are too many tentacles out there intertwined and stuff. And the only thing you can be certain of, it'd be a debacle. Okay? It'd be a terrible, terrible time. Plenty of anarchy. That would be the word of the day, anarchy. And that's where we're heading right now. I wish that weren't the case. But I don't see any good news. Certainly no good news financially. And you're playing around with this war. Somebody, I was reading an article, I think it was on Fox, and it said that the president's going with his gut on this. Well, Mr. President, I don't know what your gut is telling you, but I'll tell you what. Inflation is going to choke your administration, and it's so predictable. That's the thing. It is predictable, and apparently you're okay with that. Because if you had ended this already, and I believe that we could have had it over by now, we'd be in a little bit better standing. You know, let me bring this up again, too. It was, I guess, now about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, you had an emergency cabinet meeting. And after the cabinet meeting, we find out that you are suspending the tariffs on fertilizer and the products needed to make fertilizer. Yeah, I get it. And that's another product besides oil that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. And from what I understand, they provide more than half of the world's fertilizer. And it's not getting through right now. And so, yes, the price is going up. That's going to add more to inflation. These are all known things. But the gaslighting continues, and this administration continues like happy days are here again. They keep telling us that things are as great as could be. You can't lie about the economy. People live it every day. They know it's not okay. It's not doing well. And unfortunately now, it's the Trump economy, even though we're seeing the result of Biden's policies. And perhaps if you didn't take credit for those job numbers that were unreal, fake, perhaps more people would understand that this really is a result of 4 years of a repressive Democratic rule. But I think that's where we're going back, and it's going to get far worse. I think sometimes I wonder to myself, I say, could the president really like being impeached? He must, because I think he's going to see it another 2-3 times, because that's all the Democrat Congress is going to do when they take over. That and spend a ton of money and let the president veto it. These are not good times, and I hope I'm wrong. I always say, I hope I can come back on here at a time and say, boy, did I have this all picked wrong. But I don't think I have. I really don't think I have. And with that, I'm going to close for now, and y'all have a great day. Stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. Bye-bye.